Super, great. The technology is working. Very excited. So what I'd like to do is to find out how technology has been rising to the challenge, enabling workforces to stay home, to stay safe, while at the same time staying connected and staying productive too. So joining me on the screen right now are CTIO for BT Enterprise and 5G Executive Advisor Fotis Koronis and Collaboration Specialist from Cisco, Pete Hampton. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. How are you both doing? How are you doing, Fotis?
Oh, super well. You see, a little bit in the sunshine is good, right? Working from home. I wouldn't be able to do that if I was, let's say, working from an office. So there's a lot of advantages working from home. All good.
Yes, every cloud has a silver lining, though. There's not too many clouds out in the sky at the moment. Terrific stuff. And Pete, where are you joining us from today?
I'm joining from Berkshire, so just west of London, on a beautiful sunny day, and really looking forward to the session today.
A pleasure to be inside chatting with you all while it's so sunny outside. But hey, roll with the punches, like I say. So first thing I'd like to cover is the impact, this thing, whatever you want to call it, that's been happening over the last couple of months. So I just want to kind of touch on what the impact has been. So Pete, you first of all, the services that you and your team provides at Cisco, just tell us a little bit about the impact there over the last couple of months or so.
Sure. So it's been an unprecedented uptick in the take-up of our services. We have a portfolio called WebEx, which is our remote collaboration solution. And it's just been an extraordinary demand on the service over the last 2 months. And we've seen over 500 million attendees in those last 2 months, which is completely unprecedented.
Compared to what? So 500 million, that's a big number. But do you have a gauge of where you were beforehand as a comparator?
Yeah, so we're looking at a 2 to 3 times increase in those, just in that 2 month period. Wow. So it's been an immense uptick in a number of new users who have come onto the service to facilitate the enforced working from home, which because of COVID, everybody has had to do, quite rightly. And they've expected a service that's able to help them continue in their businesses with the minimum of disruption. And as I say, the number of new users coming onto the service is just, we've never seen the likes of it before.
Sure. Okay. And in terms of service stability and in terms of availability, you've been able to ramp up to that, like you say, a 2 to 3 times growth over the last few months. Because I know when we've seen services in the past, through whatever reason, whether it's Stephen Fry retweeting a website back in the olden days or more extreme examples right now, we've seen services in the past buckle under that pressure. But you guys have had a relatively smooth journey.
Yeah, it's been better than we would have expected. We're quite fortunate at Cisco. We actually manage the vast majority of the infrastructure ourselves, whether it's the data centers or the backbone across the world. And because we do that, we're in control. So, the guys and girls that are actually actively on the ground to manage that have done a magnificent job in ensuring that the service is always there for our customers 24 hours a day. It's a global service. And when somebody wants to attend a meeting, they need that service to be there, because that's potentially the profitability of their business is at stake for that session to take place. So it's on the whole, it's been remarkably good.
Fotis, coming over to you, your role, alongside your role, I guess, as CTIO at BT Enterprise, you're also a 5G executive advisor. Now, it strikes me that the pandemic's come at a particularly interesting time for 5G in terms of its rollout and in terms of its awareness. So what can you tell us about the role that 5G has played in our lives and maybe some specific use cases over the last couple of months?
Yeah, I mean, thank you, David. It's been, we were in the position as BT, also to Pete's point, we ramped up all our data by at least twice what we were in normal times. But one of the good opportunities is that 5G, we launched it about a year ago, right? So in this period of time, we were launching and we got 5G out in the UK, one of the first operators globally. And we started immediately on use cases, not so much only on the consumer side, because we did launch the first 5G device, consumer, etc. But the big opportunity and the promise we see in 5G is in the industry and the transformation and digital transformation. So we did some really groundbreaking, let's say, use cases in healthcare, for example, already in June when we did the first remote ultrasound test. We did the connected ambulance test, that over the real live networks. And the purpose is absolutely about remote collaboration, so that avoiding a patient to come over to the hospital, avoiding an elderly person to come in for an examination or in an A&E, and actually doing with incredible enhanced broadband, amazing quality video consultation via XR, VR, so that you could actually see the patient and do the examination and triage, and not moving on to the hospital. So these are real use cases. And then just now COVID comes up, and actually this is happening, and we're saying, look, can we use digital tools, 5G, converged networks to transform healthcare? And that is the great, I would say, opportunity through this crisis to revise and accelerate the digital first healthcare.
Sure. It's interesting. I think there was a story that I saw on the BBC website only earlier this week around remote healthcare, and about how a single consultant was able to be in the room with a patient with COVID, yet through a head-mounted display be able not only to see augmented stuff in front of them, but be able to feed back that to consultants who were in a safe room, not having to wear PPE, so you could have many more people in the room, but at a safe distance at the same time. So I think it's fascinating to see those use cases really coming to fruition right now. And in terms of the lessons that we learned from that, sorry, say again.
Yeah, and for the patient, I mean, it's amazing the efficiency, because you don't have to move the patient. You can you have the patient, the clinician, the GP, the carer onto the same call. And instead of having referrals and service over 2 or 3 weeks to get the medication and to understand what the problem is, you actually resolve it right on the spot. That is the disruption of digital workplace, if you like, or working in a healthcare environment. And protecting, of course, now with the COVID becomes more important, because the risk of moving a person that needs healthcare into hospital is risky.
Of course. At this point, what I should say is that if you have any questions for Fotis or for Pete, then do pop them into the chat. They'll be joining us for the Q&A later on. And I mentioned that poll earlier on. If you're not seeing it on your screen, then just tap on the vote button, I believe, and that will enable the poll on your screen. Super. So let's talk about working from home, because we've all been part of this world's biggest ever working from home test. And I guess even today is a big example of us doing this. Now, right at the beginning of March, I remember the news lines about how home broadband infrastructures would be completely overwhelmed by all of us home working en masse, and how firms were going to be woefully under-equipped to manage a remote working workforce at scale. So, Fotis, I'll come to you first on that. Based on what you've seen so far over the last couple of months, how's it going? How do you think, as a national workforce, those of us who can work from home and have been, how do you think we've been faring?
I think first of all, the ramp up of data usage is massive. So the first 3 days, I mean, we immediately scaled up the BT network, right, across our mobile and fixed capability to match and to be ahead of the curve, if possible, from the demand that was coming in. So the network was able to take that first impressive load, because it was overnight. Everybody was moving into home, right? So there was an incredibly fast transition of workplace from home, and that network took an immense amount of pressure. A couple of things that we had to absolutely move into more capacity between mobile to mobile collaboration, but the amount of data did not peak. It was peak the whole day, because also the school stopped. We had to have, there was a lot of video and Netflix and movies, in the evening, and working the whole day. So the whole capacity was kind of double, and I think the situation was really well. I mean, the reliability was well, the 999 was working well. At the same time, we were dealing with Nightingale hospitals, bringing that connectivity in really 3 days. We brought, laptops, sort of tablets, connected tablets for the ICUs, for the gravely patients, the patients that were in ICU care that could communicate with the family. So there was a huge mobilization, but across the partners, not just BT, but across the industry to make sure this transition happens as fast as possible. And I think the results show that the adoption of digital transformation, remote organization in order for the companies to be working remotely has actually given really great fruit in the UK. I think these are one of the things that we need to think how we keep this, and also the learnings of the way of working and the way people were reacting and taking decisions.
Sure, and we'll come on to some of those lessons learned in a moment. But Pete, I want to come over to you because I know that very few places had a playbook for this kind of scenario, really. Whether you're a large organization, hundreds of thousands of people, or smaller organizations, particularly from an online collaboration perspective. So as far as you're concerned, has it played out how one might reasonably have expected it to?
To answer the question, I think on the whole, it's gone far better than most people would have anticipated. I think throughout the whole chain from the collaboration software at one end, the service providers who've really stepped up and made sure that the services were available, to the individual organisations themselves who have made their equipment available to their end users to facilitate working from home. I think we've looked back over the last couple of months and seen that actually it's gone better than most people initially thought that it would do. I think there've been a huge amount of lessons learnt in the last couple of weeks. Our CEO Chuck Robbins actually a few days ago was giving an interview, and he was talking about this hybrid world that we're moving into, and this enforced acceleration of this digital transformation that many organizations were considering over a 1, 3, 5 year roadmap, and that's been dramatically condensed down. And actually, the net result of that is that it's proven the case that people working from home or working from anywhere is actually not only just a viable proposition, but actually there are some tangible benefits to the organisations that are doing it. And from our perspective, actually, it's if you discount the COVID piece of it, it's actually been relatively positive in as much as businesses on the whole have been able to continue their operations way better than they initially anticipated that they would be able to.
No, interesting stuff. That the expectation has been exceeded in many ways. Speaking of expectations being exceeded, we've been asking you some poll questions over the last few minutes. So perhaps we can see on the screen what the poll results are. So have your digital transformation, plans and conversations accelerated as a result of coronavirus? The results are in. 93% of you said yes. And not yet, but soon, I think I'm reading there, is 4%. But that looks like an overwhelming yes. Things have accelerated. We've got a tantalizing 2% who say no, business as usual. I'd love to know what those organizations are for whom it is business as usual right now. Perhaps you can leave a comment alongside the question. So yes, thank you very much for your polls. We'll open up another poll in just a few moments' time. Meanwhile, back to Fotis and Pete. Let's talk about change. And I guess the stage that we're emerging into right now in the UK and almost certainly elsewhere in the world as well is one where some people who are slowly being able to return back to work, but it's all very cautious, very staged, and we're starting to try and make plans around that. So I guess a couple of things. What will be the lasting impact of the last couple of months, and what do you think will change for your customers as a result of this period going forward? That's kind of one part. And then the other part is there anything we're not doing? What is the untapped opportunity, the thing that maybe we haven't landed on during this period when it comes to collaboration and collaboration technology? Fotis, I'll come to you first of all.
Yeah, I mean, David, it's sure that, even if, we're coming out of this crisis, hopefully, much more resilient. I mean, the companies realize that it's also about their business continuity, that to do digital transformation and to have a flexible remote workforce is as Pete said, it's a enrichment of the company's capability to be in a hybrid potential. We have seen that the productivity rises. We have seen, that we could work agile in a collaborative manner across different functions. So it actually gives a more reliability and to the companies, that they know that they can work, from a fixed positions, but also they can work really in great productivity if that model needs to change and in a more remote task force. So I think that is surely important. The other thing that is important is the power of connectivity and the power of ubiquitous coverage. That in order to have that mobile sort of flexible task force, you definitely need to have really reliable connectivity, but also security that goes with it, so that then you could access digital transformation, cloud-based collaboration, because it will accelerate applications moving to the cloud. And without a great connectivity, you won't be able to be a company that has a 24/7 operation and accessing information, data, customer experiences, and your real productivity part from the cloud. So that's that means that for me the message is, it's not if digital transformation will happen, it is where are you in the digital transformation journey if you haven't started yet. I mean, it's basically that.
And it's an interesting thing that, obviously there has been a learning over the last 2 or 3 months, as you say, Fotis, that, wow, people can work anywhere and in lots of different ways. Maybe we hadn't realized that to the extent that we had beforehand. And, productivity doesn't need to be dampened. I guess the next thing is, and that's not where we are right now, but what can we do strategically about that? How could that change our business model? How could that change our workforce? Because it has all been quite knee-jerk and, out of necessity. But once organizations start to look for the opportunities in that, I think that's when some really interesting changes will start to happen as well. Pete, I want to come over to you and talk about, again, collaboration in particular. We obviously have been collaborating using video platforms and so on, but, how do you see that changing, and what else could we be doing more of that for some reason, maybe the technology isn't there or maybe the behavior isn't there yet, we've not been doing so far?
Well, I think it's proven the point. The last 2 months or so has proven the point that the technology can step up to the mark and facilitate that business continuity through adversity, whatever that adversity is. But as organizations, as you say, they settle into this newer way of running their organizations, we're all looking for those newer opportunities. And some of the ones that really strike me are, historically, a workforce would generally be within commuting distance of where their employer is located. Now we've got the opportunity to actually massively increase the physical distance between the employee and the employer. So from an organization's perspective, if you're looking for talent, that pool is now global, because you have the opportunity to employ somebody that is out of your region because they've got the right skills, the right skill fit for your organization, whereas previously maybe that wasn't possible. And because the working from home structure hadn't necessarily been proven, because organizations were still on that transformation journey, because that's been compressed into such a short period of time, has sort of proven the point that actually organizations can continue and thrive in a world where folk are not all gathered in a single place. A huge opportunity is that talent pool. And the other side to that is the opportunity for them to gain customers that they wouldn't necessarily be able to have engaged with previously because they were out of their geographic scope. So we're looking at organizations now that can really take advantage of conferencing and collaboration platforms to accelerate their businesses, whereas previously they may have thought that wasn't necessarily possible to do.
Sure. Listen, we are almost out of time for now, but I just want to ask you just for a very quick final thought, one line if possible, final thought before we wrap. Fotis, I'll come to you first of all. A piece of advice for leaders. We've got many leaders from across organizations many large organizations who are watching today around planning for the future, both near and far. You know, it's obviously difficult to plan at the best of times, maybe more difficult now than in the past. But what would your piece of advice be?
Yeah, I think what I would say is the leadership that we should apply in terms of serving our people through this collaborative work we saw, and unleashing the talent that we had for our people to take initiatives through a video collaboration like this. It is about people taking initiative independently for where they belong in the organization. I think our roles as leaders is to be more serving leaders and helping unblock the opportunities and making things go faster. Because what it showed through this period of 2.5 months so far is that we can improve productivity. We can work in agile manner. Us as leaders, we need to push that potential, that talent, so that our people are much more taking more have the initiative, are empowered. We stay very close in order to facilitate the company's opportunities.
Sure.
The second thing is around, well, I know it's a bit longer, but security. We need just to make sure that when we are trading, when we are working from different locations, and we are having a customer interaction, just maintaining that that our discipline around data protection and in malware, of course, from being at home, etc. That is super important, so that our customers, because we handle assets from belonging to our customers, that is very important when we're transacting on a remote working capability.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much, Fotis. Again, same question to you as well, Pete, about planning, collaboration, but very quickly if you can. So sorry to rush you.
No, that's no problem. Look at the benefits that it can bring to the organization. There are environmental benefits, there are productivity gains, those proven productivity gains that organizations would have seen in the last 2 months or so. The benefits, the life benefits to the employees, then giving them extra flexibility in their lives to accommodate, where we move from a time-based role to a results-based role. But finally, I would say just embrace this change, because the technology is there. If it's secure from the ground up, to protect the assets, as Fotis very rightly said, embrace that technology to really accelerate that digital transformation that's been proven over the last couple of months.
Sure. Embrace the change, trust the change, trust your workforce as well. Thank you very much. We are out of time for now, I'm afraid. Fotis and Pete will be joining us later on for the Q&A. So if you've got any questions for Fotis and Pete from the conversation that we've just been having, then pop them into the comments box and we'll be addressing them later on. But for now, Fotis and Pete, thank you very much indeed for your time and for your insights.